We've all seen how tough times can, truly reveal what someone's made of, right?
Definitely. It really makes you think.
Yeah, about the core of our character. Today, we're doing a deep dive into some ancient wisdom that tackles this exact idea, how different groups respond when they face either scarcity or, well, a whole lot of abundance.
Indeed. We're focusing today on parts of the Pañcasatabhikkhuvatthu. It's a text telling a story from the Buddha's time at the Jetavana monastery.
Okay.
And these old stories, they offer a really fascinating window into human nature, how we react to different situations.
So our mission for this deep dive, for you listening, is to try and understand how our behavior gets shaped by what's going on around us, whether we have too little or maybe too much.
And we'll see this stark contrast between those the text calls virtuous and, well, others.
And it's not just history, is it? These insights feel surprisingly relevant for understanding ourselves and, people today. Okay, let's get into it.
All right. So the story kicks off actually in the Buddha's first year after enlightenment.
Yeah.
Gets invited by a Brahmin, somewhat of high standing back then, to spend the rainy season in Verañjā.
Okay.
He goes along with 500 monks. And what's striking is how things change, almost immediately.
Right, because almost as soon as they get there, a really bad famine hits Verañjā.
Yeah, severe.
Imagine that. 500 monks needing daily alms, and suddenly there's almost nothing. The text says they were just exhausted, searching constantly for food. A really tough spot.
It truly was. And you get a sense of how bad it was because the only help they got was from some horse traders.
Well, horse traders.
Yeah, and they could only give them small rations of red rice. The fact it was horse traders, maybe folks less tied into the local village structure who can help, it just shows how widespread the shortage was.
And here's where it gets really interesting for me. Venerable Mahamoggallana. He was known for having, special spiritual powers, right?
That's right, significant powers.
He actually thinks about using them, like maybe creating food directly from the earth, or even magically transporting the monks somewhere else, like Uttarakuru, this sort of mythical land of plenty, just so they could get alms.
Which poses a really interesting question, doesn't it? About using extraordinary means versus just facing the hardship.
Yeah, but the Buddha says no. He declines the idea.
He does. The text doesn't spell out exactly why, but you can sort of infer. Maybe there's a lesson in enduring it, in meeting the scarcity directly.
And that seems to be the point, because that's what the monks did. Despite the struggle, the hunger, the text really stresses their resilience. They stayed composed, behaved properly, no inappropriate actions. That takes some serious self-discipline.
It really does. It points to this inner strength, a commitment to their path that wasn't shaken just because things got tough externally.
Right.
It's a key insight, I think. True discipline isn't just tucking it out. It's keeping your ethical compass straight no matter the pressure. What really stands out to you there?
For me, it's just that stark image things are incredibly difficult. Basic survival is a struggle. Yet this group holds it together, maintains integrity. That sets a high bar, doesn't it?
It really does.
So after 3 months, the famine finally ends. The Buddha leaves Verañjā, but before he goes, he helps the Brahmin who invited him get established in the Buddhist refuges. What does that mean exactly?
Ah, okay. So being established in the refuges means the Brahmin formally takes refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, which is the teachings, and the Sangha, the community of monks.
Got it. So accepting the core Buddhist path.
Exactly. It signifies that acceptance. And after this, the scene shifts dramatically.
It really does. The Buddha arrives back at Jetavana in Savatthi, and here it's the total opposite of Verañjā. People are welcoming, offering hospitality, plenty of food.
Complete contrast.
Right.
But now in Savatthi, we meet another group of about 500 monks. These guys live in the monastery and seem to rely on leftover food. They're called Vigasada.
Tikasada. Okay.
And their behavior, now that food is plentiful, it's very different from the monks we saw in Verañjā.
How so?
The text describes it quite vividly. They eat the best leftovers, then they just sleep, wake up, go down to the river, make a ton of noise, engage in rowdy stuff like wrestling, just generally behaving inappropriately, both inside the monastery and out. It sounds pretty chaotic, actually.
Wow. Okay, so night and day compared to the monks in the famine.
Totally. And this big shift in how they acted, it didn't go unnoticed by the others living there.
I bet.
They started talking amongst themselves, saying, hey, look at these Vyasada monks. They were fine during the famine in Verañjā, showed no improper conduct then.
But now that they're comfortable with lots of food.
Exactly. They're acting out in all sorts of unseemly ways. while the other monks, the ones who were in Verañjā, maintained their composure in both situations.
So the core message seems to be that abundance kind of revealed something different about this second group's character.
Precisely. One group stays steady through hardship. The other seems to only behave well when things are tough. It's this contrast that the Buddha then steps in to address, right?
Yes. The Buddha, apparently aware of their discussion, comes over and asks what they're talking about. And when they tell him their observations, he doesn't just agree. He reveals this really fascinating backstory.
Okay, here we go.
He tells them that these 500 Vigasata monks, the rowdy ones, in a previous life, there were actually 500 donkeys.
Donkeys. Okay, that's unexpected. What's the connection there?
Well, the Buddha tells this little story. He says these donkeys used to hang around 500 thoroughbred sind horses. And the horses would drink this fine, spiced raisin drink. The donkeys, they got the leftovers, the weak, diluted dregs.
Okay, so not the good stuff.
Not at all. But here's the thing. Even drinking that weak, inferior stuff made the donkeys act like they were drunk.
Really? From the dregs?
Yeah. They'd get all agitated, bray loudly, act erratically, just completely lose their composure over practically nothing.
Wow. So even a tiny bit of something weak completely threw them off balance. What about the horses, though?
Ah, the horses. They drank the good stuff, the fine, undiluted, spiced drink, and yet they didn't get intoxicated at all.
They remained calm.
Perfectly calm and composed, handled it with no problem.
And the Buddha draws a direct line from the donkey's behavior back then to how these Vigasata monks are acting now.
Exactly. The implication is pretty clear. Their basic nature, like the donkeys, is easily swayed. In this case, it's abundance, comfort that brings it out. A very telling comparison.
It really is. And to drive the point home, the Buddha then shares something called the Valodaka Jataka.
Right, and a Jataka, for anyone listening who might not know, is a story about one of the Buddha's past lives, often used to teach a lesson.
Correct. And this particular Jataka has a key verse that really sums up the whole teaching here.
Can you share that verse? Or the gist of it?
Well, the verse itself is in Pali. Valodaka aprase nina pitfamado jati gatarbana. And it goes on.
Okay, maybe let's break down the meaning for us.
Absolutely. Essentially, the verse says, just like that weak, inferior drink makes donkeys intoxicated. Māra jati gatarbana. But the fine, excellent drink, rasa panti, doesn't cause intoxication, marana sanjayati, in the noble sin horses in Tamana.
Okay.
In the same way, someone of a low or base nature, Nyanjako, gets puffed up or intoxicated, so much hati, by even a little bit of pampi of comfort or gain. But someone born of a noble lineage or nature, someone steadfast, doesn't get intoxicated, namachati, even after experiencing the very best, agarasa pitfati.
Wow, so it really hammers home that idea. True quality, true nobility is internal. It's not about what you have or don't have.
Exactly. People of a lower nature are easily swayed, easily lose their heads with just a little comfort. The virtuous remain steady, even with abundance.
So the Buddha is really emphasizing that those with this genuinely noble character, they avoid greed and they stay balanced, unaffected by highs and lows. It's an inside job, not dependent on circumstances.
Precisely. And after sharing the Jataka story, the Buddha goes on to explain another key verse in more detail, the one starting, Sabbata sapurisa vachanti.
Okay, let's dig into that. Sabbata sapurisa vachanti. What does sabbata mean here?
So sabbata means in all or everywhere, but in this context, it refers to in all dhammas.
Dhammas, like phenomena, aspects of reality.
Exactly. Things categorized by the 5 aggregates, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness, basically how we experience everything. So sabbata means in relation to all aspects of existence.
Okay. And sapurisa, we know, means noble persons. So what about vajanti? What are they doing in all dhammas?
Vajani means they abandon or let go of. Specifically, they abandon desire and attachment.
Oh.
Through the knowledge that leads to arahantship, that state of full liberation in Buddhism. So these noble people are actively working to free themselves from craving in relation to everything they experience.
Got it. The verse continues, Nakamakama lapayanti santo. What's that telling us?
Oh, this is interesting. Nakamakama lapayanti santo means that the virtuous santo don't lapayanti for sense pleasures.
Kamakama.
Lapayanti. What does that mean? It sounds like lapping something up.
Sort of. It means they don't talk or hint in ways designed to get things. They don't subtly manipulate to receive pleasures or offerings. The commentary gives an example, a monk asking lay people leading questions about their well-being, not out of genuine concern, but hoping to get an invitation or donation.
Oh, okay. So it's about that subtle angling for personal gain, even if it looks polite on the surface.
Exactly. It's about the intention. True virtuous people, like Buddhas, don't desire these things for themselves in that way, nor do they subtly encourage others to give them things out of self-interest. Their interactions are purer.
That's a really fine distinction, but important. It's not just about obvious grabbing, but about the motivation behind even seemingly kind words. Okay, and the verse ends. Right. This part says that when touched, phutta, by happiness, sukhena, or athava, by suffering dukkena, the wise pandita, do not show nadasayanti, highs and lows, ukavaka.
Meaning they don't get overly excited or deeply depressed.
Precisely. They remain untouched by what are called the 8 worldly conditions: gain and loss, honor and dishonor, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. They just don't swing wildly between elation and dejection based on external events. The verse is just stating it as a fact about the wise. They maintain equanimity, balance.
That sounds like a state of profound inner stability, real peace.
It is. And significantly, the text mentions that after hearing this whole discourse, the story, the Jataka, the verse explanations, many in the audience actually attain stages of enlightenment, Sutapati and so on.
Wow. That really shows the impact of understanding this, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Shows that internalizing these principles can really lead to deep transformation.
So let's try and wrap this up. This whole deep dive into this ancient story really seems to reveal a timeless truth, wouldn't you say?
I think so, yes.
That our real character isn't about the situation we're in, but about some kind of inner steadiness, a freedom from greed.
That contrast between the monks in the famine holding it together and the monks in Savatthi kind of losing it with abundance. It's such a clear illustration.
Yeah, it shows how easily maybe undisciplined minds can get swayed by comfort while the truly virtuous stay balanced no matter what.
Absolutely. And it really prompts you, the listener, to think about your own life, doesn't it?
For sure.
Have you seen these patterns in yourself maybe, or people you know, reacting differently when things are tough versus when things are easy? And maybe how can we cultivate more of that inner resilience, that balance that texts talk about?
It definitely makes you consider the subtle stuff too, like how even actions that seem well-intentioned might have some underlying desire mixed in.
Right. How do we spot genuine virtue versus just, behavior that happens to fit the circumstances?
Yeah. And that final thought, maybe facing unexpected hardship can sometimes uncover a strength we didn't realize we had.
While conversely, maybe too much unchecked comfort could actually expose weaknesses we'd rather not see.
Definitely some powerful things to chew on as we finish this deep dive.
Indeed. Lots to reflect on there.